So first, we're going to learn how to nmap. But before I start running through the actual program, what is nmapping to begin with? Nmapping is a tool in Linux Kali and it's used for network discovery and vulnerability scanning. Professionals use this to discover devices running on their network. It's kind of like an advanced ping. It's a very basic tool, and the more knowledge that you gain by using Linux Kali, the more useful the tool will be. I'm just going to do a very basic demonstration of what it can do though. It can monitor a single host or vast networks depending on what you set it to. It's a port scanning tool, and it can determine if the port's open, closed, or filtered. Nmap can scan a single IP, a DNS name, a range of IPs, subnets, and even scan from text files. So how do we go about scanning for these? We're going to open up the terminal, and we are going to type in the command ifconfig first. This is going to give us the IP that we're going to use and scan, so this is what we're going to use. Now to actually nmap this, it's going to be nmap and then the IP. So it's going to give us some information here, as you can see. And it's pretty much going to tell us that we've got 999 closed ports. We've got one that's open, one host up, which is me. Nmap scans the first 1,000 ports by default, but you can actually set it to scan all 65,535 ports. All you have to do is type TAC-P. I'm not going to do this because it takes a bit of time, but I figured I should mention it just in case. So to show the OS, we just have to add in a very simple command. We put TAC capital O, not a zero at the very end, and we just click enter. It'll start to run, and once it's finished, we'll see we've got some new information here. We can see that this Linux stuff all down here is new for us. And that's going to be the OS. This will work with Windows, Mac, whatever the device is running, that's what it'll appear. Since I was running Linux, that's just what it is. In summary, nmapping is a very useful tool for professionals and hackers alike. If the hacker can get onto your network, this is a really easy way for them to find information out about you, but it can also be very good for monitoring your own network. It's a great feature to put time into and is one of the basics for Linux Kali. Okay, the next tool I want to demo is a tool called PhoneInfoga. It's a very helpful tool that can help identify exactly what the phone number is, really. I'm sure many of you have gotten like a random call from some number you've never known, don't really know what it is, by like telemarketing. And a lot of us are very skeptical of the call in general. We don't know if it's a legit number or not. That's kind of what this program's deal is. It's going to figure that out for us. So someone's made a really awesome program at this website here, github.com/sundowndev/PhoneInfoga. And this is what we're going to use. It'll be in the description if anyone's interested. Now, getting a free number isn't that hard of a thing to do. You can simply look it up on a website, and there's plenty of them that exist. This is just one that I found. And if I just make an account, I can use this number for free, and I can use it for whatever purposes I want to. So it's really easy to just fake a number. But we're going to learn how to install this program now. So if you go to the website, you will click on a link and install this. And now it's done installing. It's a pretty quick install. And then after that, we're going to go cd PhoneInfoga. And now we're going to be in the directory for it. But now we have to finish the installation. And in order to install it, we're going to type Python 3 tac m pip install tac r requirements.txt, and then we're going to press enter. As you can see, it's installing. It's going to take a bit longer. All right. So now that we've got it installed, we're going to want to install the config file, which we're going to do with cp config.example.py config.py. Now to ensure that everything's working properly, we're going to show the version of the program by just executing python 3 PhoneInfoga.py tacv. If we click enter and we give it a second, it should come up with this. It's going to show version 1.10.9, and now we've known that we've successfully installed PhoneInfoga. Okay, now that we've successfully installed PhoneInfoga, we can test our number. So to go about doing that, we're actually going to first type in tac h at the very end here. It's going to come with the list. And what this list has on it, we can see here, is if we put tac n, that's how we're going to find our number. So we'll do tac n. We'll go back here, grab the number, and we'll paste. And we'll click enter. Now, as you'll see, it's going to start pulling up information on the number. We're going to click no for additional format. And if we go up here, we can see that it's going to give us a lot of information. We can see the city, the area, there's no carriers, we can see time zone, country. We can see a lot of information. We can see it could possibly be a VoIP number. So this program is really great for finding out if a number is legit or not. You can use it on any number. And obviously, if there is a carrier, it will show a carrier. So we can see if it's legit or not. And it's just a great way to see if a number is to be trusted or not. Lastly, I would like to demo some of the more offensive properties of Kali Linux. It's not all defensive, and it can be used for hacking purposes. Unfortunately, I do not have the correct environment to demonstrate these, but I found an amazing video by Noel Byte on YouTube, and I heavily recommend checking out some of his videos. He has a lot of videos demonstrating just how powerful this program can be.
When assessing a system to attack, a hacker is usually looking to find vulnerabilities. The first step of doing so is usually recon, but with a couple scripts, Nmap can actually go offensive and show you various critical vulnerabilities it discovers. We'll show you how this works on this episode of Cyber Weapons Lab. Hackers or penetration testers going after a network will often work in a couple phases to identify the weakest link. Now, one of the best tools for doing this is Nmap, which allows you to scan a network and identify different hosts on it, as well as different services they might be running. Now, you can also take advantage of some really interesting features of Nmap that might not be commonly known by a lot of users, and in this case, we're going to explore scripts. Now, what a script does is allow you to use various outputs from Nmap to determine things like whether or not there's a vulnerability in that service that you've discovered. Now, we can find this in the CVE report, or a critical vulnerability report, that was logged when the vulnerability was originally discovered, and look to see if maybe someone has weaponized a tool that allows us to take advantage of this exploit. Now, in order to do this, we'll need to have Nmap installed, and you'll need to be running this on Kali Linux or another system that's easy to install, things like GitHub repositories, because we'll also need to make this executable in order for it to work. Once you have Nmap installed and your system is fully updated, then we can begin. Now, to get started understanding how to use Nmap scripts, we're going to pick a couple that are particularly useful for an attacker. First, we're going to use Nmap vulners, and second, we're going to use vulscan. Oops. So these are two really effective scripts that Tokyo Neon wrote about in his excellent guide, which we will be following along with for this tutorial. Now, another really interesting thing about these is they do not require very much configuration at all. We can just go ahead and download them with a git clone command after we click on the link here and then copy this link from each into a terminal window, just type git clone, and then the address for each here. Now, make sure you type cd first, because if you're in some wacky directory, then you might accidentally clone it there. And basically, as soon as it's in the directory it's supposed to be in, then Nmap will know exactly where to find it. And when you use the command, it will just go and search through the directory there to see if it matches any of the output you're getting from your Nmap scan. So let's go ahead and do a scan and see what it looks like. This is the command to use a script in Nmap. We'll be using a damn vulnerable Raspberry Pi, which we covered in a previous guide. And this is at IP address 192.168.0.33. So we're going to be doing a service scan, so we should get the version of the services that are running on this Raspberry Pi. And we're also going to say script, vulscan, and then vulners. So before we do that, I'm actually going to delete this portion, and I want to see the difference between what we've already learned and then what we're going to be doing today. If we just do this scan with what we've learned up until this point, while we do get a good overall picture of what's running on the device, we really have no idea as to whether or not it's vulnerable or if it's been updated recently or what's going on. We would have to go and compare it to the most recent version, see how far along this protocol is, and it could take quite some time to realize, hey, this is old, it might be worth looking up whether or not this is vulnerable. So if we're looking for the weakest link here, this doesn't really give me enough information to be super useful. But let's take a look at what comes up when we do the complete command here. So really what I want is an indication of what to attack first. What's the most vulnerable? What's the most out of date? I really don't get much of an indication from these two services that come up what I might want to attack as a red teamer or a hacker with the initial output. So whoa, this is a lot more. Even though we only have two different services we're scanning, we can see this tiny little report before is dwarfed by everything that we have here. So we, in particular, are getting a lot of information from vulners, which has a really comprehensive database of different vulnerabilities that have been documented and rated by severity. So we can see some 5.0 vulnerabilities here, and then further down, some more interesting 7.5. And this is where we really start getting into stuff that could be more damaging and maybe get us remote access on a system or cause it to not function at all. So if I'm an attacker, then I know exactly what I'm doing at this point. I'm going to focus on the most serious vulnerabilities, and I can click on these links to learn more about what the vulnerability is and what I can do to take the next step in attacking the target. So here we can see an excellent little description. We can see on made dereference a null point during an API. Well, that seems like something you probably shouldn't be able to do. But there's also another one I found earlier, which is a little bit more clear and actually just causes a denial of service attack against the OpenSSH server. Now that's really interesting, and I wanted to click around and see if this has been developed into a proof of concept. And I was actually able to find a couple different proof of concepts for vulnerabilities on the network I was scanning. In particular, I found this mini UPnP server vulnerability, which actually did have a proof of concept in Python, taking advantage of the attack that had been found. It was pretty cool to find an actual proof of concept that had been developed for a vulnerability I found using this Nmap scan on the first try. So I encourage you to test this out on your own network and just run a scan with the intention of looking up the vulnerabilities and seeing if it's something that's serious enough to mitigate patching.